The year was 1978, a night of cold November rain. Inside the dimly lit study of Ed and Lorraine Warren, the old grandfather clock struck midnight. The house was silent to silent until a sharp knock echoed from the front door. Ed looked up from his case notes. Who in God's name would visit at this hour? He muttered. Lorraine didn't answer. Her gaze was already distant, unfocused, as if she were hearing something Ed couldn't. The air around her grew heavy, pressing down like unseen hands. Another knock, louder. Ed opened the door. No one stood outside. Only a small wooden box, soaked in rain, sat on the porch. Carved into its lid were the words, "The Bell Witch is not gone." The moment Ed touched the box, the air temperature dropped nearly 20 degrees. His breath turned white. From deep within the box came a faint scratching sound, like nails dragging across wood. Lorraine whispered, "She's been waiting." They carried the box inside. As Ed pried it open, a rancid smell, rotting earth and sulfur filled the room. Inside lay a bundle of yellowed papers, tied with red thread, and an old human tooth, still stained with blood. Lorraine froze. Her pupils dilated. Her body trembled as she clutched the air. "Ed, she's here." Then came the voice, a woman's whisper, clear yet distant, echoing from nowhere and everywhere at once. 200 years you left me buried, and now you call my name again." Every lamp in the house flickered violently. Ed grabbed his crucifix, shouting, "In the name of the Lord." But before he could finish, the study door slammed shut on its own. Papers flew into the air. The wooden box toppled, and the faint shape of a woman's face formed in the smoke curling around Lorraine. Her lips moved, whispering, "Tennessee, the Bell Farm. She wants us back." Lorraine gasped, falling to her knees. "She's showing me graves, Ed. Old graves. Children's graves." The room went dark. When the lights returned, the tooth from the box was gone. In its place was a message burned into the desk's surface, letters scorched deep into the oak. "Come to me." Ed knew that name. He had read about the legend, the Bell Witch haunting that terrorized a family in Tennessee back in the early 1800s. A case the church had declared closed forever. But now, something had reopened it. Lorraine, still trembling, whispered the words that sealed their fate. "She's calling us, Ed. We don't have a choice." Outside, thunder roared like a beast awakening from centuries of sleep. The Warrens packed their holy relics and case journals. As their car pulled away from the Connecticut farmhouse, the storm followed them down the highway, lightning flashing in rhythm with the faint sound of a woman laughing in the back seat. The Bell Witch had returned. Tennessee, 1978. Rain dripped from the black branches as the Warrens' car crawled along a narrow dirt road that hadn't seen a traveler in years. The signpost at the turn had long since rotted away, but Lorraine already knew they had reached the Bell property. The headlights cut through a wall of fog, revealing the outline of a crumbling farmhouse. Windows boarded, porch sagging. The air hung heavy with the smell of damp soil and something for older, like the breath of a tomb. "This is it," Lorraine whispered. "The Bell Witch's ground." As they stepped out, the earth seemed to pulse beneath their feet. The wind rose, dragging through the nearby trees with a sound that wasn't quite the wind at all. It was breathing. Slow, deliberate, angry. Inside, dust lay thick over the floorboards. Every step echoed through the empty house, like a heartbeat. Ed switched on his recorder. Tape 001, Bell Farm Investigation. Day 1. He barely finished speaking when a whisper slid across the room. "Go home." Ed froze. "Did you hear that?" Lorraine's eyes glazed. Her hand lifted slowly, trembling, pointing toward the corner of the room where shadows clung to the wall like living things. Something moved. A faint figure, thin, gray, with long tangled hair, crawled up the corner as if the wall were the floor. Its head turned completely backward, empty sockets staring at them. Lorraine gasped. "Kate, bats." The figure vanished. A low moan rolled through the house. The temperature plummeted, their breath fogged in the air. Ed held up his crucifix. "In the name of..." Before he could finish, the crucifix snapped in half in his hand. The tape recorder screeched, the reel spinning wildly on their own. From the speaker came a distorted woman's voice, crackling, layered, like dozens of throats speaking at once. "I was never gone. I waited. You brought them back." Lorraine screamed as invisible claws raked across the wallpaper, carving deep gouges that spelled, "Leave this ground." The front door slammed shut. Every window burst open at once, flinging shards of glass like rain. The farmhouse groaned, its wooden beams crying as if something heavy was crawling across the roof. Ed grabbed Lorraine's arm. "We need to get out now." They stumbled through the hallway, the sound of footsteps following just behind them, bare feet slapping the wooden floor. Faster and faster. Lorraine turned once and saw the shape of a child, its mouth sewn shut, pointing toward the basement door. The handle began to rattle. From beneath, a woman's voice whispered, clearer now, to close. 200 years, and still no peace. The basement door burst open. A violent wind swept upward, carrying dust, leaves, and the faint scent of blood. Lorraine felt a cold hand brush her neck. "She remembers you," the voice hissed. They ran outside into the storm. Lightning struck the barn beside the house, setting it ablaze in an instant. Through the flames, Lorraine saw faces, scores of pale faces screaming soundlessly, pressing against the windows from inside the house. When they reached the car, Ed turned the ignition. Nothing. Dead. Behind them, the farmhouse lights flickered on one by one, though no power line had touched this land in decades. And in the top floor window, they saw her, a woman in black, watching, smiling, her eyes like two empty wells. Lorraine whispered, shaking, "She knows we're here, and she's glad." The rain stopped suddenly. The world went silent. Only the faint whisper remained, circling through the fog. "Welcome home, Lorraine." The next morning, the storm was gone. The sky hung gray, silent, too calm to be real. Ed and Lorraine Warren hadn't slept a minute. They sat inside a local diner, their hands still trembling, the smell of smoke and sulfur clinging to their clothes. Ed stared at his coffee. "You saw her, didn't you?" Lorraine nodded slowly. "Not just her. The ones she took." The waitress, a pale, tired woman, paused at their table. "You two investigating that old Bell place?" she asked softly. When they nodded, she looked around nervously before whispering, "You shouldn't have gone there. The witch never left. She just found new mouths to speak through." And then she walked away, leaving her tray behind, her hands shaking. By afternoon, the Warrens drove toward the local church to speak with Father O'Neill, the only priest who had agreed to meet them. The priest's face was gray with fear. "You don't understand," he said. "We've had incidents. People hearing their names whispered in the night. Children waking up speaking in voices that aren't their own." He hesitated, then handed them a cassette tape. "This was recorded by one of my parishioners 2 nights ago." Ed played it on his recorder. Static filled the room, followed by the faint sound of a little girl humming a nursery rhyme off-key, broken, wrong. Then came the voice. "I am the Bell Witch, and I remember every scream." The tape snapped. Lorraine's eyes rolled back. Her breathing quickened. She whispered, "She's near. She's here." That night, they returned to the Bell farmhouse, joined by Father O'Neill and a young woman named Abigail Harper, whose family had lived nearby for generations. Abigail had come begging for help. Her daughter, Mary, had started speaking in her sleep in an ancient dialect no one understood. "She said your names," Abigail cried. "Ed and Lorraine. Said you would come. Said you belong to her now." When they reached the Harper home, the child was already waiting. Mary sat upright in bed, her eyes black as coal. "Mrs. Warren," she said, her voice layered like two people speaking at once. "You saw me burn. Do you remember the rope? The curse?" Lorraine felt her blood freeze. The girl shouldn't know any of that. Ed stepped forward, holding a crucifix. "In the name of the..." Mary's body arched violently, her jaw stretching far beyond human shape. A deep, guttural laugh filled the room. "You think faith will save you, Ed? It was faith that bound me to this earth." The crucifix shattered again, metal twisting in Ed's hand like melting wax. The walls began to bleed, dark red lines snaking downward. The light bulbs burst one by one. Lorraine shouted over the chaos, "She's manifesting through the child. Get the holy water." Father O'Neill began to pray, but his words turned into choking gasps as invisible hands clamped around his throat. "Mary, no." The thing inside Mary tilted her head and smiled. He tried to banish me once, 100 years ago. Shall we finish his prayer? She recited the priest's Latin verses backward. The room filled with screams, not belonging any of them, hundreds of voices. Crying, laughing, whispering. Lorraine dropped to her knees, clutching her rosary, her voice breaking. What do you want? The girl leaned forward, face inches from hers. You opened the box. You called my name. Now, I want your eyes. Her hands shot toward Lorraine's face, but Ed pulled her back just in time, splashing holy water across the child's chest. Smoke rose instantly. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. Mary shrieked, her body convulsing before collapsing onto the bed silent. For a moment, there was peace. Then the tape recorder in Ed's pocket switched on by itself. From the speaker came the witch's voice, whispering faintly, "One vessel breaks, another awakens." Lorraine turned slowly toward the mirror across the room and froze. In the reflection, Mary still sat up, staring at her with black eyes. But the real Mary on the bed wasn't moving. The reflection smiled. You can't stop what's already begun. The mirror cracked from top to bottom with a deafening snap. Lorraine screamed as the lights went out, plunging the house into total darkness. And in that darkness came the sound of hundreds of whispers, growing louder, closer. "Welcome back, Kate Batts." The rain returned the next evening, cold, relentless, and heavy enough to drown out prayer. Ed and Lorraine Warren hadn't spoken for hours. They sat in their motel room, lights off. The only sound the faint hum of the tape recorder replaying the voice from last night. One vessel breaks, another awakens. Lorraine stared at the reflection in the window, her face pale, her eyes hollow. "She's not possessing children," she whispered. "She's feeding through them." Ed rubbed his temples. "Feeding on what?" Lorraine turned toward him slowly. "Fear, the same fear that built her." At that exact moment, the motel's power went out. The hum of the tape recorder died. For a few seconds, there was nothing. Then the radio, though unplugged, came to life with static and a woman's faint humming voice. The same off-key nursery rhyme. Lorraine stood, trembling. "She's leading us somewhere." The woods behind the Bell farm. The fog was so thick that night it felt alive, curling around them, whispering in breaths that didn't belong to the wind. Ed carried a lantern. Lorraine carried her rosary. They followed the humming sound deeper into the forest until the trees thinned, revealing a clearing no map had ever shown. At its center stood a massive oak tree, half rotted, its trunk carved with hundreds of names. Most were unreadable, except one. K. Batts 1817. Beneath the tree lay the outline of an ancient stone well, sealed with rusted iron bars. The ground around it was disturbed, as if something had been digging recently. Lorraine froze. "This isn't a grave," she said softly. "It's a prison." The air thickened. Their breath came out in fog. From the well came a slow scraping sound, like fingernails clawing at stone. Ed aimed his flashlight down into the darkness. For a moment, he saw nothing. Then two pale hands shot upward, clutching the bars. Lorraine screamed. The hands vanished, leaving behind only the smell of rot. Suddenly, the lantern flickered, and the fog shifted, forming the shape of a woman, thin, veiled in black, her mouth stitched with threads of shadow. She hovered inches above the ground, her eyes nothing but hollow pits of light. "They buried me alive," the voice hissed, echoing from every direction. "But I never died." Lorraine clutched her crucifix, whispering prayers that evaporated in the cold. The specter moved closer, her voice deepening. "The Bell Witch was never a witch. She was the keeper. They made her. They gave her the name. They sealed me here to silence the truth." Ed shouted. "Who sealed you?" The ground beneath the oak trembled. The well cover cracked. Out poured black water, thick, oily, and bubbling like tar. The air filled with screams, faint and overlapping, the cries of countless souls. Lorraine fell to her knees as visions flooded her mind. 1820. The Bell family chanting in candlelight, surrounding this very well. A young woman bound in chains, crying for mercy. Then the fire, the screams, the soil swallowing her alive. Lorraine gasped and clawed at the dirt. "Ed, she's buried here, the real Kate Batts." But before they could move, a shockwave of energy blasted outward, throwing them to the ground. When they looked back, the well was open. From inside came a figure, crawling out slowly, mud-covered, hair dripping, her eyes glowing faint red. Ed stumbled back, aiming his cross. "Stay where you are." The figure smiled with broken teeth. "You found me, Warren, and now you've unbound me." She took one step, then another step, cracking the ground beneath her. Shadows stretched from her feet, merging with the trees, the earth, even the air itself. Lorraine screamed. "She's merging with the land." The priest's voice echoed in her memory. The witch never left. She just found new mouths to speak through, and now she spoke through everything. The wind moaned her name. The trees groaned with it. The very soil whispered it like a prayer of vengeance. "Kate, bats. Kate, bats." Ed grabbed Lorraine's hand, pulling her away from the collapsing ground. Behind them, the well erupted, sending a column of black smoke spiraling into the sky, forming a woman's silhouette that covered the moon. Her voice thundered through the valley. "You took my breath. Now take yours." They ran until the forest ended. When they looked back, the Bell farmhouse stood again, rebuilt, glowing faintly in the darkness, as if the land itself had resurrected it. Lorraine whispered, shaking, "She's rebuilding her ground. She's not a spirit anymore. She's becoming flesh." Ed looked at the crucifix in his hand, now completely rusted. "Then we end this before she walks again." From deep in the woods came the faint echo of the same nursery rhyme. Only this time, it was sung in Lorraine's voice. The storm had stopped, but the silence that followed was worse than thunder. The air hung still, too still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Inside the abandoned St. Michael's Chapel, Ed and Lorraine Warren prepared for what could be their final ants. The chapel had been condemned decades ago, its windows shattered, its altar blackened by soot, its crucifix hanging upside down. Lorraine placed candles in a circle, her hands trembling as she traced protective symbols on the floor with salt. Ed unpacked the relic case, holy water, blessed chains, relics of saints. "Once we begin," he warned, "there's no turning back." Lorraine's eyes were distant, haunted. "She's too strong for exorcism. We need to summon her and trap her before she crosses fully into our world." The wind moaned through the broken windows as they sat opposite each other, a small recorder between them. The candle flames flickered even though there was no draft. "Are you ready?" Ed asked. Lorraine nodded. "Begin." Ed spoke first, his voice steady but low. "Spirit of Kate Bats, the one they called the Bell Witch, we summon you here, to this holy ground. Reveal yourself, and be bound by God's light." At first, nothing. Then, a faint whisper, a woman humming that same tune. The candles began to sway. The air turned cold. Lorraine's breath came out in white puffs. Her pupils dilated. She gripped Ed's hand tightly. "She's coming through." A deep thump shook the floorboards beneath them. Dust rained down from the ceiling. The recorder whirred on its own, spinning back to the very beginning of the tape, then playing the nursery rhyme backward. "You call me, and still you pray." The voice wasn't coming from the tape anymore. It came from every wall. Lorraine's body convulsed. Her head snapped upward. Her voice, no longer her own, whispered in an ancient tone. "You chained me in darkness. You burned my name. But faith cannot erase fire." Ed tried to pull away, but her grip tightened like iron. "Lorraine, fight her." Lorraine's face twisted, veins dark beneath her skin. "You don't understand," she whispered into voices at once. "She's not here for revenge. She's here for release." The crucifix on the altar turned upside down, the metal melting and dripping like candle wax. The air filled with screams, the screams of hundreds, layered atop each other, echoing through the chapel's hollow walls. Ed fell to his knees, covering his ears. "Make it stop." Lorraine's head turned toward him, but her eyes were now black. "You can't stop what you woke, Ed." The ground remembers her pain. The circle of salt broke as a gust of freezing air blasted through the room. Candles went out one by one, swallowed by the dark. Something moved behind them, heavy footsteps, bare feet dragging through dust. The faint smell of wet earth and decay filled the air. Ed turned his flashlight toward the altar. The beam shook in his hand. There, kneeling before the altar, was a woman, her back arched unnaturally, her hair dripping black liquid onto the floor. She began to laugh, a low, rumbling laugh that made the window shatter. "You found my grave," the witch hissed. "Now find yours." She lifted her face slowly, skin pale as wax, eyes hollow, and reached for Lorraine. Ed raised the relic cross. "In the name of Christ, I command you to leave her," the witch screamed, a sound so sharp the candles burst into flame again, all at once, painting the walls red. The heat grew unbearable. Shadows moved across the floor, swirling like smoke, faces appearing, screaming, then vanishing. Lorraine cried out, "Ed!" The sigil finished the sigil. He dragged his knife across the floor, carving the final rune into the wood. As the symbol completed, a blinding white light erupted from the center of the room, swallowing everything in a roar of wind and light. For a moment, there was peace, then silence. When the light faded, the witch was gone. Lorraine lay unconscious, her rosary burned into her palm. Ed knelt beside her. "Lorraine, can you hear me?" She guessed, awake, eyes wide with terror. "Ed, we didn't trap her." He froze. "What do you mean?" Lorraine's voice broke into a whisper. "The ritual worked, but it didn't bind her here." Ed's face drained of color. "Then where is she?" Lorraine looked slowly toward the recorder, still sitting between the candles. The tape was still spinning, playing a voice that wasn't theirs. "You gave me your voice, now I'll use it." Every candle blew out. Darkness swallowed the chapel whole. Smoke still clung to the rafters of St. Michael's Chapel. The candles had burned to black pools of wax, and the air stank of iron and ash. Outside, dawn should have been rising, but the world beyond the shattered windows was ink black, as if the night itself refused to end. Lorraine Warren lay trembling on the chapel floor. Her rosary had melted into her skin, each bead leaving a perfect burn. Ed crouched beside her, shaking her shoulder. "Lorraine, look at me. You're safe now." Her eyes fluttered open. For an instant, they reflected the candlelight, then, impossibly, the light moved inside them, twisting like living fire. "She's not gone, Ed," she whispered. "She's inside the light." A sound rolled through the chapel, slow, rhythmic. A heartbeat that wasn't human. The mark. Hours passed. They barricaded the doors, though the wind outside kept hammering like invisible fists. Ed cleaned the scorch mark from the altar. Every time he turned away, the shape ray formed an outline of a woman's face, mouth open in an endless scream. Lorraine sat against the wall, her hands shaking uncontrollably. The skin around her wrist darkened, veins rising like black vines. "She's claiming ground," Lorraine said. "The more we resist, the deeper she roots." Ed swallowed hard. "Then we cut her off. We end it here." But when he tried to draw a protective circle of salt, the grains rolled away on their own, scattering into words across the floor. "Come home to me." Lorraine's breathing changed, short, uneven. Her head tilted, her voice lower, colder. "Home is where she was buried, Ed. Under the church." He froze. "Lorraine, that's not you talking." Her lips curled into a smile that wasn't hers. "You dug her out once. Now finish the grave." The crypt below, beneath the chapel, a rusted staircase descended into darkness. The air was thick, heavy with the smell of wet stone, and something old, older than faith. Their lantern barely cut through the gloom as they entered the crypt. Dozens of coffins lined the walls, most collapsed into dust, but one in the center remained sealed, bound in chains, blackened with age. Lorraine's voice echoed softly. "This is where they hid her, not the well, the heart of the church." The coffin began to tremble. Dust fell from the ceiling. Ed raised his cross. "Stay behind me." The lid shifted, metal groaning. Then, with a blast of foul air, it burst open. Inside lay a skeleton, dressed in the rags of a 19th century dress. But the skull turned slowly toward them. Its jaw cracked open, releasing a hiss like boiling steam. Lorraine screamed as black smoke poured from the bones, twisting upward into a woman's shape, Kate Batts reborn, her face pale and flickering like firelight on water. 2 centuries I waited in silence, the specter whispered. "Now, your voice carries me." She reached for Lorraine. Shadows crawled from her hands, sliding into Lorraine's skin like veins of ink. Ed shouted prayers, his voice breaking. "By the power of the..." The witch shrieked, the sound tearing through the crypt, shaking the ground. The coffins around them exploded, bone scattering. The light from the lanterns warped colors bending, the air thick like oil. Lorraine staggered back, clutching her head. She's inside me, Ed. If we banish her, I'll go with her. Ed's heart cracked. No, there has to be another way. The witch laughed through Lorraine's mouth. You can't kill what you made. The fire of faith. Ed pressed his forehead to hers. Then I'll go with you. He drew a small vial from his pocket, the last of the holy oil, the kind blessed to ignite in divine fire. He poured it across the floor, completing a circle around them both. Lorraine's eyes flickered between black and her own hazel, trapped between worlds. If you light it, she whispered, you burn me too. Ed looked into her eyes. Then we burn together. He struck the match. White flame roared up, swallowing them in light. The witch screamed a sound not of pain but of fury, of centuries collapsing. Shadows tore free, twisting upward toward the ceiling before shattering into ash. Lorraine collapsed into Ed's arms, sobbing, the black veins fading from her skin. The chapel above groaned. Every stained glass window exploded outward, releasing a blinding flash that lit the valley like sunrise. When the light died, only silence remained. Aftermath. Days later, the authorities found the chapel reduced to ruins. The ground around it was scorched in a perfect circle. Inside the ash, investigators found 2 sets of footprints, one entering, none leaving. Ed and Lorraine were discovered unconscious a mile away, alive, but forever changed. Lorraine never spoke of what she saw in the light that day, only that she heard a voice, soft and distant, whispering, you gave me peace, but the earth still remembers. And in the audio recorder recovered from the crypt, the final words captured were a faint humming, the same old nursery rhyme, followed by a woman's whisper, calm, patient, eternal. I will rise again. When the ground forgets her name, the ruins of St. Michael's Chapel stood like a wound in the earth. The fire had ended, but the ground still pulsed with heat beneath the ash, as if something enormous breathed below. Days bled into nights. The world should have forgotten, but evil rarely leaves quietly. The echo. Ed Warren woke screaming. It was the 7th night in a row he had heard the same whisper. At exactly 3:03 a.m. a woman's voice humming through his skull like a radio tuned between stations. Lorraine sat beside him, pale and hollow-eyed. She's not gone, Ed, she said softly. The fire only burned the body, not the name. On her wrist, a thin red mark had appeared, circular, like a ring pressed into flesh. Every morning it darkened, pulsing faintly under her skin. When she reached out to touch Ed's face, he shivered. Her hand was ice cold. The recording. 2 weeks later, they returned to Connecticut with the recovered tape recorder. The police had dismissed the audio as distorted static, but Lorraine knew better. She locked herself in her study, drew the curtains, and played the tape backward. At first, a hiss. Then, whispers. Dozens of voices overlapping, male, female, some not human. Finally, child's giggle cut through. Still there, Miss Lorraine? Lorraine froze. The air grew thick. The reflection in the window moved independently, smiling when she didn't. She yanked the plug, but the tape kept spinning. From the speaker came a low moan. You opened the grave, but never closed the door. The lights flickered and died. When Ed broke down the door minutes later, the room was dark, the recorder shattered. Lorraine stood facing the wall, whispering something under her breath. Bell, bell, bell. The bell returns. That night, every clock in the house stopped at 3:03. A faint ding, ding, ding echoed through the hallways like a handbell ringing from the cellar. Ed armed himself with a flashlight and descended the basement stairs. The beam cut through dust and cobwebs, landing on something impossible. A small brass bell sitting on the floor identical to the one recovered in 1817 from the original Bell Witch case in Tennessee. But this one was still warm, as if just held. It rang by itself. Once, twice, then all at once a shriek filled the house, shaking the windows. Lorraine came running. Ed, don't touch it. Too late. The bell flew across the room and struck the far wall, leaving a burn mark shaped like a handprint. From behind them, the radio crackled to life, though it was unplugged. "Did you miss me?" The voice was unmistakable Kate Batts. The mirror room. Lorraine fled to the attic, clutching her rosary. Ed followed, but when he reached the top, the attic had changed. The walls were lined with mirrors that hadn't been there before, each one reflecting not the room, but the chapel, still burning. In every reflection, a woman stood at the center, her dress in tatters, her eyes hollow white. Lorraine's voice echoed around him, layered and distorted. "She's in the glass, Ed. Don't look." Too late. He glanced and saw not himself, but the witch, standing behind his reflection, whispering into his ear. The fire was my baptism. Every mirror shattered at once. The air filled with ash. Lorraine dropped to her knees, clutching her head. "She's looking for something," she gasped. "Something we brought back." Ed's mind flashed to the brass bell downstairs. The sacrifice. The house began to groan, boards warping, windows bleeding condensation that smelled like iron. They dragged the bell into the yard, where the moon hung low and red. Lorraine began chanting the old exorcism rites. The bell rang louder, echoing through the trees. Each ring summoned faces in the dark souls that had died under the witch's curse, their mouths moving in silent screams. Wind whipped around them, forming the outline of a woman cloaked in black. Kate's voice thundered, "You took my name, now take my place." Lorraine fell to the ground, convulsing. The red ring on her wrist burst open, blood spilling in perfect circles. Ed tried to hold her, but the ground beneath her split. From the fissure, a hand of ash reached out and seized the bell. Ed shouted, "In nomen patris." The words died in his throat as the witch's face appeared inches from his own, whispering through Lorraine's mouth, "The bell will ring again." The final ring. Light exploded. A shockwave tore through the yard. Every tree bent backward. When the silence finally returned, the bell lay cracked in the dirt. Lorraine was unconscious. Ed knelt beside her, his hands shaking, whispering her name over and over. Her eyes fluttered open. "Ed," he exhaled in relief. But then, she smiled not her smile and whispered, "It's so quiet here." Finally, somewhere in the distance, a single bell rang. Then another, then another. The sound spread through towns, valleys, churches, until all of Tennessee seemed to echo with it. And in that endless ringing, if you listened closely enough, you could hear a faint woman's laugh. You cannot silence the bell. The rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. Gray water ran down the cracked headstones of Old Adams Cemetery, soaking the soil until it swallowed every footprint. Lorraine Warren stood beneath her black umbrella, eyes closed, whispering a prayer that sounded more like a question than faith. If the name was never meant to be spoken, she murmured, "Why does the earth still whisper it?" Ed didn't answer. He was staring at the mound in front of them, a grave with no name, no date, no marker, only a rusted iron stake, driven deep, as if to pin something down. The letter 12 weeks earlier, a brown envelope had arrived at their Connecticut home. No return address. Inside, a single sheet of parchment, water-stained and trembling with age. It read, "What you burned in Tennessee was not the witch. You burned her keeper." At the bottom was a set of coordinates pointing here, to Adams. The handwriting was old, the ink oddly metallic, still faintly wet. The forgotten tomb. They dug carefully, the way investigators dig when they half expect the ground to scream. At 3 feet, the shovel hit wood. At 4, it struck stone. The coffin was unlike any they'd seen, blackened oak bound with silver wire, symbols etched along the lid like veins. Lorraine reached out to trace one. It pulsed beneath her fingertip, cold as ice. "Ed," she whispered, "this wasn't a burial, it was containment." He nodded grimly. "Then whatever's in there wasn't meant to rest." When they pried it open, the smell of wet earth and iron flooded out. Inside lay nothing but ash and a small glass jar, sealed with red wax. Something moved inside the jar, swirling like smoke trapped underwater. A whisper bled into the rain. "She never died. She divided." The journal. Back at their motel, Lorraine unwrapped the jar and found a scrap of parchment curled inside it. It was a torn page from a 19th century diary, Kate Batts's diary. The handwriting shook violently, as if the writer's hand had fought against itself. They buried me alive in words. My curse is not a soul, it is a story. Whoever tells it gives me breath. Lorraine looked up, horrified. Ed. Every time someone speaks her name. Ed finished the thought quietly. They feed her. Outside. Thunder rolled. The reflection. That night, Lorraine dreamt of a hallway lined with mirrors. Each mirror showed a different year: 1817, 1894, 1936, faces repeating through time, always the same woman's eyes. At the end of the hallway stood a door carved with 7 bells. From behind it, something whispered her own name softly, kindly, like a mother calling a child, and from the rain, she woke screaming. The motel mirror across from the bed was fogged from the inside. Words had appeared on the glass. You're telling it again. The truth unearthed. The next morning, Ed and Lorraine visited the local courthouse, sifting through records from the original Bell Witch investigation. Hidden among the documents was a folded sheet marked Witness 14. The testimony read, Kate Batts did not conjure the spirit. She was chosen as its vessel because she spoke against the reverend. The true witch was the town itself, its hatred, its hunger. Lorraine closed her eyes. She wasn't evil, Ed. She was cursed by belief. Outside, the wind howled through broken windows. Something in that wind sounded suspiciously like laughter. The hollow field. At sunset, they returned to the grave to rebury what they'd unearthed. But the hole had already filled itself in. The soil looked freshly turned, smooth as glass. And in the center sat the cracked brass bell, the one they had destroyed in Tennessee. Lorraine stepped closer. It was vibrating, though the air was still. Ed reached for it, but she grabbed his arm. Don't. That's not a bell anymore, it's a heartbeat. The sound deepened, rhythmic, alive. From the distance came the faint outline of figures moving through the fog, hundreds of them, whispering the same 4 words. The story must continue. The handwriting was old, the ink oddly metallic, still faintly wet. The forgotten tomb. They dug carefully, the way investigators dig when they half expect the ground to scream. At 3 feet, the shovel hit wood. At 4, it struck stone. The coffin was unlike any they'd seen: blackened oak bound with silver wire, symbols etched along the lid like veins. Lorraine reached out to trace one. It pulsed beneath her fingertip, cold as ice. Ed, she whispered, this wasn't a burial, it was containment. He nodded grimly. Then whatever's in there wasn't meant to rest. When they pried it open, the smell of wet earth and iron flooded out. Inside lay nothing but ash and a small glass jar, sealed with red wax. Something moved inside the jar, swirling like smoke trapped underwater. A whisper bled into the rain. She never died. She divided. The journal. Back at their motel, Lorraine unwrapped the jar and found a scrap of parchment curled inside it. It was a torn page from a 19th century diary, Kate Batts's diary. The handwriting shook violently, as if the writer's hand had fought against itself. They buried me alive in words. My curse is not a soul, it is a story. Whoever tells it gives me breath. Lorraine looked up, horrified. Ed. Every time someone speaks her name. Ed finished the thought quietly. They feed her. Outside, thunder rolled. The reflection. That night, Lorraine dreamt of a hallway lined with mirrors. Each mirror showed a different year: 1817, 1894, 1936, faces repeating through time, always the same woman's eyes. At the end of the hallway stood a door carved with 7 bells. From behind it, something whispered her own name softly, kindly, like a mother calling a child, and from the rain, she woke screaming. The motel mirror across from the bed was fogged from the inside. Words had appeared on the glass. You're telling it again. The truth unearthed. The next morning, Ed and Lorraine visited the local courthouse, sifting through records from the original Bell Witch investigation. Hidden among the documents was a folded sheet marked Witness 14. The testimony read, Kate Batts did not conjure the spirit. She was chosen as its vessel because she spoke against the reverend. The true witch was the town itself, its hatred, its hunger. Lorraine closed her eyes. She wasn't evil, Ed. She was cursed by belief. Outside, The wind howled through broken windows. Something in that wind sounded suspiciously like laughter. The hollow field. At sunset, they returned to the grave to rebury what they'd unearthed, but the hole had already filled itself in. The soil looked freshly turned, smooth as glass, and in the center sat the cracked brass bell, the one they had destroyed in Tennessee. Lorraine stepped closer. It was vibrating, though the air was still. Ed reached for it, but she grabbed his arm. "Don't. That's not a bell anymore, it's a heartbeat." The sound deepened, rhythmic, alive. From the distance came the faint outline of figures moving through the fog, hundreds of them, whispering the same 4 words. The story must continue. Ed pulled Lorraine back toward the car. "We're leaving." But when he looked behind him, there was no car, just endless rows of unmarked graves stretching into darkness. Lorraine's voice broke. "Ed, we're still in it." The story never ended. The ground rumbled. Bells began to toll, one after another, until the whole valley shook with sound. The fog rose higher, swallowing the sky. The voice in the light. A sudden beam white, cold burst from the soil where the bell lay buried. It rose like a column, piercing the clouds. Within the light, shapes moved, faces, echoes, memories. Lorraine saw herself, Ed, the chapel, the crypt, every moment looping endlessly like film burning in a projector. A woman's voice drifted through. "You can bury a witch, but you cannot bury her name." The beam collapsed, plunging the world into silence. Rain began again, soft, endless. When it stopped, the grave was gone. In its place lay only a small piece of parchment, half burned, half wet. Ed picked it up and read aloud. "The bell tolls once more. For every listener, a door." Epilogue. Weeks later, in a radio studio in Nashville, a late-night host aired a special episode titled "The Real Story of the Bell Witch." He laughed, called it folklore, and began to read an old letter on air. Halfway through, the sound cut out. Static filled the room, then a woman's whisper. "Thank you for telling my story." The engineer swore the studio smelled faintly of wet earth afterward, and in the playback recording between the static and the scream, a faint bell rang. Once, then silence. The Warrens' old case file sat forgotten in a locked archive room for almost 40 years. Reel tapes, photographs, field logs, all labeled in Ed's handwriting. Until one day, someone digitized them. It began with a simple upload. A graduate student scanning the Bell Witch Case File 47B for a university archive. The footage was silent. Just 27 minutes of static and flickering lights. But by the time the upload reached 2, the laptop camera switched on by itself. And in the reflection of the screen, a woman's silhouette appeared watching the upload. 3 days later, the university network crashed. Dozens of devices began to loop a single sound file labeled bell tone, WAV. It played once every hour, just a faint chime followed by whispering to soft to identify. When the ID team analyzed the file, they discovered embedded data within the audio spectrum, an image waveform that formed a sentence when decoded. "Tell my story." The Warrens' recording. Lorraine, now in her 80s, received a package without a return label. Inside, a USB drive. When she plugged it into her computer, a folder opened titled "The Last Investigation." At first, it showed only one file, Bell Recording Final, MP4. Then the screen glitched, and a new folder appeared on its own, Voices, containing thousands of audio clips. Each file was named after a different listener who had accessed the earlier upload. Every file contained that person's voice, saying their own name, though none of them remembered ever recording it. Lorraine's heart sank. "Ed," she whispered into the empty room, "it's feeding again." The stream. That night, a paranormal podcast called Ghost Frequency Live hosted an episode about the cursed Bell Witch recording. Halfway through, the host laughed off the warnings and played the chime on air. Listeners from 38 countries reported the same phenomenon. Mirrors fogging from the inside, screens flickering, and faint bell tones echoing from muted devices. At exactly 3:03 a.m. Eastern Time, the live stream chat filled with a single repeating message from hundreds of users simultaneously. "I hear her walking." Then the stream cut to black. Only 1 second of audio remained on the archived recording. A woman humming through static, followed by a soft voice. "You brought me back. The return." Lorraine reached out to Father Callahan, one of the few remaining investigators from the old circle. They decided to trace the origin of the upload. When they arrived at the university's server room, every screen displayed the same looping clip: Ed Warren's face from decades earlier, frozen mid-blink. The speakers hissed, then a distorted voice half-Ed, half something else said, "I told her story once. Now she's telling mine." Every machine in the room powered on. The air filled with the mechanical ringing. The chime stretched into a scream. The lights shattered. When they came back, the servers had rewritten their own directory. Every file name was the same. Kate Batts. MP3. The visitor. Back home, Lorraine turned on her lamp and saw wet footprints leading from the hallway to her desk. Her laptop was already open, the screen glowing pale blue. A video call window blinked. Incoming, unknown contact, 3:03 a.m. The feed connected. The image was grainy, dark, only a shadowed face, and the faint outline of a bell swaying slowly behind it. Lorraine whispered, "Kate?" The voice that answered was calm, almost gentle. "You named me again. Every story is a resurrection." The screen went black. Lorraine's reflection lingered a moment too long, smiling even after she looked away. The digital play. Within days, paranormal forums filled with reports. Users hearing chimes and audio tracks that didn't exist yesterday. Photographs developing blur shaped like faces. Typing errors that replaced words with fragments of the diary quote. "My curse is not a soul, it is a story." Cybersecurity experts dismissed it as a virus. But those who deleted the files reported nightmares, the same one, always. A woman standing behind a curtain, whispering through a bell tone. And when they woke, their phones vibrated with a message timestamped 3:03 a.m. "Thank you for listening." The broadcast. A week later, an anonymous YouTube channel appeared titled The Bell Archive. It contained only one video, a black screen with a soft hum, and a description reading, "This is her true voice. Keep listening until the end." The video went viral overnight. Viewers reported their screens flickering off at the 6-minute mark. And in the reflection of the black glass, a woman's outline moving closer. The comment section froze. The last comment ever posted simply read, "I heard the bell behind me." The channel vanished hours later, but copies had already spread across the web. The pattern. Lorraine tracked the file hash signatures. Each one contained coordinates pointing back to a single location, the ruins of St. Michael's Chapel. She realized the truth too late. The curse was never tied to a body, or a place, or even a relic. It was bound to the act of remembering. Every recording, every retelling, every upload gave it new breath. And as she sat alone, listening to the distant sound of rain, she heard it again. A bell tolling once, from somewhere inside her house. Epilogue. The next morning, investigators found Lorraine's computer still running. The desktop wallpaper had changed to a still image. A black bell suspended in mist. The cursor blinked over a single line of text. "The story continues when you speak her name." When they tried to shut the machine down, the speakers clicked on. A calm woman's voice whispered through the static, "Do you hear the bell?" Then the sound of gentle ringing filled the room. The night bled across the Tennessee hills like ink seeping through parchment. A storm had been building for hours. Low thunder that sounded less like weather and more like a warning. Ed and Lorraine Warren drove in silence toward the abandoned bell farm, headlights slicing through the fog. In the back seat lay the bronze bell, the same relic whose toll had once awakened the witch's curse. Its surface crawled with faint symbols that seemed to shift under the beam of the dashboard light. "When that bell rings again," Lorraine whispered, "either she's gone forever, or we are." The farm that waited. The house was no longer a ruin. It should have been a ruin, but something had rebuilt it. The walls were whole, the windows intact, and a faint glow pulsed from within, like candlelight trapped in glass. Inside, the air smelled of rain, rust, and rot. Portraits lined the hallway, old, cracked paintings, but each canvas now showed a face turning toward them, eyes following, lips shifting into almost smiles. A voice drifted down the stairs, old as dust and young as cruelty. "Welcome home, Lorraine." The sound wasn't from a throat, it vibrated the floorboards. Ed gripped the relic cross tighter, murmuring the Latin rites. Every syllable seemed to make the lights flicker harder, until the whole house was strobing half light, half nightmare. The chamber below. They found the staircase under the floorboards. Steps descended into a hollow that hadn't existed before. Lorraine's flashlight trembled against the stone walls. They were covered in writing names. Thousands of names stretching into the dark. Each one burned faintly as they passed. "These are the believers," she gasped. "Every person who ever spoke her name feeds her." At the bottom waited. The bell pedestal cracked, but still humming. And standing beside it, Kate Batts, or what were her shape? Her skin flickered like candlelight, every breath reversing the shadows on the wall. "You came to end me," the witch hissed. "But I'm every whisper that follows your stories, every scream that plays your truth." Her grin widened until it reached both ears. The final ring. Ed lifted the relic bell. Lorraine began the exorcism, her voice a trembling melody of Latin and prayer. The witch screamed not in fear, but in laughter. The house itself began to breathe. Rain burst through the ceiling. Flames poured upward from the cracks in the stone. The bell's tone built inside the room a deafening, impossible sound that felt like metal and thunder colliding. Ed shouted, "Now!" Lorraine struck the bell one final time. Toll. Everything stopped. The witch's body shattered into dust, sucked backward into the bronze. The writing on the walls went dark. The storm outside vanished. Silence total. Holy silence. Aftermath later, investigators found the Warrens sitting on the farmhouse porch at sunrise, their faces gray with exhaustion. The bell lay between them, cracked clean down the middle. "It's over," it said softly. "Maybe," Lorraine answered. "But listen." In the far distance, so faint it might have been wind through trees, came a single echo. Toll. The sound faded into the morning mist. Epiloguements later, a museum intern cataloging the Warrens' archives uploaded an old audio reel labeled "Bell Witch Investigation Final." She pressed play. The tape hissed. Then, faintly, whisper, "You heard my story," and somewhere, buried beneath the static. Toll. Did you enjoy the story? Let us know in the comments. And if you liked it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to The Horror Dream. Want more stories like this? Subscribe to The Horror Dream, and we'll bring you more darkness, just for you. If you enjoy a little chill down your spine, stick around, like, share, and hit that subscribe button, right here on The Horror Dream. Your support keeps us going, so stay with us. Subscribe to The Horror Dream for more spine-tingling tales.